Before I start this lesson, I want to tell everybody here how grateful I am for you. I have talked to many people who received your prayers, who benefited from your prayers. And I personally have, and I appreciate this fellowship more than I can express. Today, the story is about the widow of Nain. I've read this story so many times, and when I started looking at this, I thought, well, I know this story, and then I got to know it better, and then better. And then I started identifying with the people in the story. And the lessons that are woven in here, I didn't expect to see. So hopefully you'll join me on this walk. If I can figure out how to do this.
The mouse doesn't work.
Okay. Okay,
Got it.
great. This is the text of our lesson. Soon afterward, he went to a town called Nain, and his disciples and a great crowd went with him. And as he drew near to the gate of the town, behold, a man who had died was being carried out, the only son of his mother, and she was a widow. And a considerable crowd from the town was with her. And when the Lord saw her, he had compassion on her and said to her, "Do not weep." Then he came up and touched the bier, and the bearer stood still. And he said, "Young man, I say to you, arise." And the dead man sat up and began to speak, and Jesus gave him to his mother. Fear seized them all. And they glorified God, saying, "A great prophet has arisen among us, and God has visited his people." And this report about him spread through the whole of Judea and all the surrounding country. As I was reading this back, I started looking at this back in January, and I woke up January 27th at 5:30 in the morning, and this was on my heart. And I just sat down and it just came off my pen. It's called The Widow. My soul is aching, my heart bereft. My arms are empty, my son is left. I'm all alone, what will I do? My heart in pain, my son's sweet face I'll not see again. I march this dirge toward the gate, the mourners are wailing. No words for this state. My broken soul's aching, death cuts my soul. My heart breaks, I'll never be whole. My eyes are downcast, moving past the gate. I feel his presence, his gaze on my face. Amid all the crush, his eyes, they meet mine. He knows my heart. He reaches unasked and raises my son to life from his death. In pain, he meets me, restoring my soul. In hope, I surrender. He may know.
Oh, that's awesome.
Thank you. I want you to feel what she was feeling. She was so sorrowful and so weighed down by this pain. She had been through it before. She had lost her husband. This was her light. This was her hope. This was her son. And now he's dead. So you can't look up in the middle of a grief of death. I know most people here have been through death somewhere in their life. I've lost beautiful people in my life. The most recent one that I've lost was my nephew. In 2020, he was around 40, and he died suddenly. And I can't know in any part how my brother and his wife feel. I can't. And I know it doesn't get easier, but those of you who have been through the pain of loss can walk right into where this widow is. Life in ancient name was nothing like our life. Life in ancient name was marked by economic hardships and social challenges, especially for its vulnerable residents. And the vulnerable populations were widows who are marginalized, and there were other vulnerable groups as well. The ones who had handicaps were kind of pushed on the sidelines. And there were many others. They were faced with significant hardships, including economic difficulties and social stigma. With particular regard to widows, they relied on family and community. In ancient Israel's funeral customs, they included various rituals that symbolized mourning and respect for the deceased. According to Jewish interpretation of the Old Testament law, burials had to occur within 24 hours. Shortly after death, family members came to mourn and prepare the body. Family and friends gathered for a very intense period of mourning involving loud expressions of sorrow and lamentation. After the body was prepared, it was carried to the cemetery in a procession which included professional mourners hired to express the appropriate grief. The home of the deceased was considered unclean. Nothing could be prepared to eat in the home during the mourning time, which was 30 days. There are some things that are similar in our culture now. I don't know if you see them here, but family and friends gather for an intense period of mourning. We do that. We don't hire people for us to do the mourning, but some people do hire people to play a piano or sing a song at a funeral. So we kind of do that. We're just not as loud and expressive with our grief as the ancients were. We consider it more, you must have more of decorum when you're grieving. Jewish burial customs included rituals and loud mourning. In America, we provide food and other forms of comfort. What other forms of comfort and support do we provide?
Our presence.
Our presence just at the funeral,
No, at the home.
at the home,
But and if they have a viewing, at the viewing.
at the viewing, and what about a couple of months later? Are we still aware of their grieving?
Not always. But
Sometimes after the funeral, we have a tendency to think that's all over, you know.
We do have a tendency to say it's all over with after the funeral. Grieving has been shown to be most intense around the third month. That's when it really hits. When my dad passed in 2017, it took me 2 years to get through a day without crying. 2 years. And Sunday I was thinking about Clint, and as I left the service, I couldn't see to drive.
One of the things that my brother did for us that I had thought, my father passed away, he was living with me. When my father passed away, my brother and his wife, they rented a hotel for my mom, myself, and my daughter, and went and put us in a hotel, and they stayed at our home and welcomed all the guests and all the different people and everything, so that we wouldn't be burdened with that. And they took in all the food and everything, and so we could come there whenever we wanted to talk to people. we were able to rest and get away.
That's
we
extremely
wanted to.
thoughtful, because sometimes you just need
Right. And
the
then
time.
as soon as the funeral was over, they sent us on a 2-week vacation.
Wow.
Said, y'all need to go away, and got us a hotel in Corpus Christi and go away. And so that we could actually go and mourn, but at the same time, just be away from everything and not have to face realities. And that was something that was so special because it was thought out by them of, they need time. So giving them time.
Yes, absolutely. For our Zoom viewers, what was just said is, a father had passed in this family, and the surrounding family supported those who had been at the home with the father and put them in a hotel. And the incoming family stayed at the home and welcomed visitors. So the family could recoup and rest, which I think is extremely thoughtful. The contrast, Jesus' arrival in Nain. In this story, death meets life. Another visitor has already made his mark before Jesus came. He tries to invade our lives all the time. Only Jesus can keep him at bay. A more powerful visitor, Jesus, enters, and he changes everything. The widow exits the city with a funeral procession. This is a sad, dreary, loud group of people exiting the city. And they encounter this happy, exuberant, joyful group of people who's just seen Jesus do all this stuff in Capernaum. And the sad, grieving funeral procession meets the joyful procession. Have you ever gone to a funeral site, a grave site? Used to, years ago, people would pull over to the side of the road and let the procession pass. Doesn't happen anymore. People don't pull aside anymore. The world goes on. And in the middle of the sorrow, you wonder, how can people just keep going? The world is different. Their world isn't, yours is. The widow's only son died. And I saw a parallel here. God's only son died. Jesus sees her. Now I can look up and I can see all of you. But if we're talking and we're really having an exchange, I see you. There's a big difference. And what's important in this, the way this word is used in the scriptures, his gaze is upon her. Jesus had compassion on the widow. According to what I've read, the original text here shows a different word for compassion that is used only 12 times in the New Testament. It meant visceral. He had a gut reaction. It wasn't just empathy. It was, pain. It was extreme empathy. It was intestinal. It was deep. Jesus stops the procession. This is not done in that day and time. You don't stop a funeral procession. You join the procession, but you keep your distance from the death, and you join it, and you're there for each other, but it's more of a distancing thing. He told the widow not to cry. Say what? Don't cry? If she had had any idea, she wouldn't have been crying in the first place. Previously in Capernaum, Jesus was responding to requests. Here in Nain, his help was neither expected nor requested. He responds to the widow because of who he is. That's profound to me. It helps me know that he is here with me. And even if I don't say, I need your help, he knows. And he has compassion. He has the same compassion now that he had then. But he's more omnipresent. He stops the procession. He puts his hand on the bier. Consider the miracle of Elijah and Elisha. Elijah raised a widow's son by laying on him 3 times. 1 Kings 17:21-22.
Then he stretched himself on, out on the boy 3 times and cried to the Lord, "Oh, Lord, my God, let this boy's life return to him." Then the Lord heard Elijah's cry, and the boy's life was returned to him, and he lived.
So there's one. And it took laying on him 3 times. God was still just as powerful, but the miracle required 3 times. How long was Jesus in the grave? 3 days. 3 days. Elisha raised the wealthy Shunammite son by laying on him 2 times. 2 Kings 4:36.
Elisha summoned Gehazi and said, call the Shunammite, and he did. When she came, he said, take your son.
Sure.
Okay. She came in, fell at his feet, bowed to the ground, and she took her son and went out.
Now, the Shunammite incident happened about 4 miles away, 800 years earlier. And here Jesus is in the same area. He raised the widow of Nain by,
Luke 7:14, that he went up and touched the bier, and they were carrying him on, and the bearers stood still. He said, young man, I say to you, get up.
so did it require touch? No. This shows us the power and the glory of God by his words. By his words, he brought life back to a dead soul. One of the things I wanted to look at in this leaving the city and entering is death leaving, life entering. There, to me, there's a connection between how when we're immersed into Christ, our sin is covered and he comes in, the Holy Spirit comes in. So there's a leaving and an entering. And the symbolism in this story just keeps hitting me over and over again. Jesus' act of raising the widow's son showcases his divine authority over life and death, inspiring faith. This miracle symbolizes the restoration of life, illustrating hope and renewal in times of despair. The event highlights Jesus' compassion, showing his willingness to help those in mourning and distress. Witnesses experience profound emotional reactions, demonstrating the transformative effects of faith in their lives. The event underscored the deep impact of faith, illustrating how it can change perspectives and lives. The miracle's implications extended beyond the immediate moment, influencing beliefs and teachings in Jesus' ministry. I'm just gonna skip over this, but the broader narrative, I'll go ahead and read it. The broader narrative is Luke places miracles within the context of Jesus' overall ministry, highlighting his mission and teachings. The gospel emphasizes the importance of mercy, showing how Jesus cares for the needy and suffering. And Luke highlights Jesus' inclusive approach toward marginalized individuals suffering, offering them hope and acceptance. we have many marginalized people. We have people in Medicaid homes that, they're there alone. And I don't know if any of you have ever visited a home, a Medicaid home where someone is being cared for, but sometimes the conditions are really bad. And it's really pretty astounding, what some people live in and how they have to exist alone. People in hospice, there's a lot of people, I knew of, one hospice where there were people there no one ever came to see, ever. So there's a lot of marginalized people. We have our refugees, we have homeless people, we have so many people that this congregation ministers to. And there's still people out there we're not touching. There are so many. Exploring the nature of Jesus' authority helps us understand his role in the divine narrative and the impact of his miracles. Jesus' mission to bring hope to the hopeless highlights his compassion and the transformative power of faith in the Christian journey. The implications of Jesus' miracles have deeply resonated throughout Christian thought, shaping beliefs and theological interpretations over centuries. The summary that I want to leave with you, and this is just a tiny bit, but Jesus is the compassionate God of resurrection. He spoke to every area of life, walked in it, and leads us through it. He was there for the widow in her time of grief, and he restored her joy. When Jesus looked at her, I'm sure she looked at him through the blur of tears and hopelessness. He was there with her and brought her through. We need to keep our eyes on the one whose eyes are on us. You ever think about that? When I think about eyes, I'll finish reading this. I'm going to tell you something about my brother, who created, his eyes are on us, who created us for his pleasure, who sings over us and blesses us through everything, even when we do not know what to ask or how to ask it. Speaking of eyes, when I think of Jesus' eyes, I think of my older brother, because although I've seen many loving eyes over my lifetime, and there's been a lot of people that have loved me deeply. I remember one time when I was sitting talking to my older brother, and we were just visiting, and it was, he's got these beautiful brown eyes, like I would imagine Jesus had, you know. And we were just visiting, and I asked him about his kids. And all of a sudden, there was this difference in his eyes. It was pure love that came out. I don't know how to say it any other way. I've never seen anything like that, just in the middle of a conversation, totally transformed his eyes. He cares so deeply for his children, and it just touched me. I thought, oh, that's how Jesus is. And I've remembered that all these years. It's like, you know, when I think of Jesus looking at me, I think of those eyes. These are the sources I used, if any of you are interested in looking at any of the sources. But like I said, I had about a stack of stuff about this big that I culled through to make this presentation. The presentation, I had like 30 slides and I cut down to 18. So it's been very condensed, but I hope that you have benefited from this and that you carry this with you. And remember that God is always with you. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I missed the last one about witnesses experienced. What are those like?
Oh, they experienced fear at the glory of God. So they, and then it's interesting to note that the witnesses also immediately went out and told. They told of their encounter. They told of what they saw, of their experience. And that's a call, again, for us as well, to do the same. Any questions or, yes, ma'am?
One more thing I'd like to say is, I've worked, you know, a lot in the senior living world and with hospice and stuff, and then being with Ralph and Joe during Jonah's passing. And I know sometimes that we're scared to go see someone because we say, I don't know what to say. And I think we have to have some answers for them. You don't. Just be there, and just, put a hand on them and just pat them, and just say, let me know what I can do, But, just don't be afraid.
I think that's a big key for everyone. Don't be afraid. If you just step out, God will help you.
That's right, exactly right.
I know I get scared and I don't want to step out. And then when I do, it's like, okay, I see what you did there. I don't always like it. I see what you did there.
Can I share?
Yes, ma'am.
I had never experienced death. My parents had always sheltered us from death. And my dad was a preacher and a missionary preacher over in Germany for 21 years. And we never went to funerals. We never did any of that kind of stuff. They just kind of sheltered us from that. So I had been to my grandparents' funeral, but I didn't really know them that well. Right? So when my father was passing away, that was a very hard time. And we went through the hospice experience. So we were up at hospice as he was passing away. And it was our family, just my brother and my sister, my brother's wife and my mom and I. And then we had, I guess they're called helpers or people in there, nurses, I guess, witnesses in there with us, but they stood at the back, and so forth. And we were all standing around and my dad was very teensy tiny, he hadn't opened his eyes, he had been blind for about 6 months, couldn't see or anything like that. And all of a sudden, his whole body sat up, his eyes opened wide, and he had the biggest smile on his face. And all of us, of course, especially me, I was terrified. I was like, oh my goodness, what is going on? And the lady, who we didn't know or anything, in the back of the room, just waiting, she goes, he just saw Jesus. And my dad laid back down and passed away.
Oh my God.
None of us said it. None of us thought it, but this stranger, like he said, he just saw Jesus. It was the most profound and amazing thing that I had ever seen. I had never experienced death or been around somebody who died before or anything like that. But my dad had always talked about grace. And that the only way he was able to go see God was because of grace. And because of that, I am able to deal with death.
Right.
Because of the smile on his face, because I know it's real.
Yep.
I know it's true. And just seeing this lady and Jesus just said, get up. Can you imagine? Can you, my dad passed away. I saw him small, but he passed away. Can you imagine your son standing up and coming back? Just unbelievable. The belief she must have had in her, the true honor
Of who God is.
who God is, and that Jesus, she didn't do it. Jesus chose her.
Mhm.
Jesus chose her son.
Right.
Chosen. Yes, Pam.
I think it's always interesting when Jesus, and it talks about Jesus raising from the dead. Because he always has compassion on the people surrounding the person who died, because he knows what's in store for the people who died. And so and then I always wonder what the rest of their life must have been like after that situation, because it certainly impacted the widow.
What do you think was different about her life from then on?
Jesus. And I think that she then became one of his disciples, as you would hope, as well as the son. And so there was still another life to be lived, hopefully in service to Jesus for both the widow and her son after this encounter with Jesus. So, I mean, you're hoping that that was the case. But it always talks about Jesus is never concerned about the person who died because he knew what their fate was going to be. He was always concerned about the people who are left behind. And I think that when we experience those death situations of family and friends and those that we love, he's concerned about us because he knows the fate of the person who has passed on.
Who's gone?
I love that Pam pointed that out because the widow and her son didn't just go, oh, good to be alive, let's go home and fix supper. I mean, their life.
Their life was changed in a very real way, yes. Yes. Transformed. And hopefully we're allowing Christ to do his transformation in us. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very good.
Can we get a copy of your plan?
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, it's wonderful. Yes.